I might have to fight a battle between volume and feedback on this microphone, so bear with me. We really appreciate you coming out. You know that it is a room full of democracy lovers if you're turning out at 5 o'clock on a Friday, so thank you. My job up here is to introduce our speakers, which I will do so in just a minute, and just to run you through the format. So this is a public forum on H.R. 1, voting rights, and to some extent, if you're interested, Prop 3 here in Michigan, which obviously has a lot to do with voting and elections in the state of Michigan. So all of you were offered the opportunity to submit questions on note cards when you arrived. If a question occurs to you during tonight's event, please just raise your hand. We have our staff all over the place. They'll bring you a card with a pen, and you can still turn it in. All of the questions were turned over to the Congresswoman. I was going to give this little speech about how we're only filtering for things that are really off topic, because we want to stay focused. And so if you had a question, let's say on healthcare or immigration, we would just ask you to find a staff member and maybe come to our town hall next Thursday in Rochester at the other end of this district. But if a question is on topic, I passed it along. And then I was going to say I had to filter it out because of vulgarities, but these were a really thoughtful, considerate group of questions, so we didn't have any issues with that, so I appreciate it. We are looking forward to a really civil dialogue tonight around a set of really important issues. So thank you again for coming, and please don't hesitate to flag us down if something pops into your mind. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers. First, we have from the Secretary of State's office, Jonathan Brader. Jonathan is the Legal Policy Director for Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. He comes from a background at the Brennan Center for Justice, the Democracy Program at the Brennan Center for Justice, where he focused on modernizing elections through state and federal legislation, administrative reform, and litigation. But he is from Michigan. We graduated cum laude from U of M Law School. Next, we have a really wonderful guest that I'm very excited to have with us. We're all excited to have. Tiffany Muller, the President and Executive Director of End Citizens United, who flew in just for us today. Tiffany has helped grow End Citizens United from a startup into a nationwide organization with more than 4 million members that has raised over $7 million over the last several election cycles with an average contribution of $14. You have to forgive my breathlessness. This is a growing child who has a tendency to wind me a little bit, so sometimes I get caught up. End Citizens United has made the issue of reform front and center and spearheaded the movement among candidates to forego corporate PAC money. Last cycle, under Tiffany's leadership, it helped to elect 56 candidates to the House of Representatives and paved the way for the introduction and House passage of the For the People Act, H.R. 1, the most comprehensive anti-corruption and reform legislation in a generation. And then finally, my honor, because I'm her Deputy Chief of Staff, is to introduce Congresswoman Elisa Slotkin. Yay! Yes. Hopefully you know Congresswoman Slotkin, but if you don't, a little background on her. She's third generation Michigander. She lives in Holly, also at the other end of the district. If anybody has any questions about gerrymandering, they might be appropriate. Congresswoman Slotkin started her career as a Middle East analyst with the CIA, work that took her to 3 tours in Iraq as a militia expert. And then between those tours, she held various defense and intelligence positions under both President Bush and President Obama. In 2011, she took a senior position at the Pentagon, and then until January 2017, served as acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs. That background in national security, which is deep, contributes to the urgency and passion she brings to increasing government integrity and accountability and passing campaign finance reform. So please welcome our guests to the table.
All right. So let's see. Maybe we'll sit. And I will stand. Yeah, I will stand and start off. Can you hear me? Yes. Is it a little bit stronger? Can you hear it? Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay. Thumbs up from the back. Okay. It's great to be here, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are very excited to be here and talk a little bit about H.R. 1 and then get to the questions. I just think it's important to review the bidding and remember where H.R. 1 came from. This story starts a long time ago, but for me starts last summer, when no matter where I went in our district, and our district is creatively drawn, it's a handcrafted, gerrymandered district, wherever I went in the district, it did not matter if I was talking to Democrats or Republicans or independents, everyone was talking about their concerns about the integrity of the government, about big money in politics, and about ethics. And I heard about it in particular in the Lansing area when I would talk to Michigan State students. And Michigan State students were telling me in droves that, you know what, they were just not going to vote in their first election or their second election. And as a national security professional, as someone whose entire family is in service, that just made my heart drop to think that American citizens, young American citizens, were deciding to bow out of the democratic process. And then, of course, the role of big money in politics. It was everywhere I went, and people felt like it was undercutting whatever issue they cared about. If they cared about the healthcare industry and the healthcare that they were getting, they were worried that the healthcare industry was undercutting and buying and selling their politicians, and so that we weren't getting real healthcare reform. Prescription drug prices, same thing, that the pharmaceutical companies were paying huge sums of money to our elected officials, and therefore they were not making progress on legislation. So for me, it just became a very, very strong signal from the district that people wanted real reform. Myself and a few other candidates across the country started running on bringing integrity back to our government. I have to give credit to Tiffany Muller, the head of End Citizens United. She helped connect the dots because I was worrying and thinking about those things here in Michigan. Others were worrying about it in New Jersey or in Staten Island or in Iowa or in everyone was worried about this wherever they were going. So 5 or 6 of us got together. We signed on to a letter to Democratic leaders saying that if we flip the House of Representatives in November, the first bill of the new Congress, H.R. 1, should be a government reform and campaign finance reform bill. We lobbied, with Tiffany's help, we got 100 candidates to sign up to that letter. And while we had a little hiccup with something called the federal government shutdown for the first 6 weeks of our tenure in Congress, yet last week was the culmination of something we've been working on. We passed through the House of Representatives H.R. 1, which we were, let me get that done. Tiffany's going to go into the kind of building blocks and what goes into it. For me, it's about disclosing big money in politics so that you can't secretly and anonymously donate money. It's about government ethics and holding those of us who are elected to a higher standard and stopping that, chain that goes from elected official to lobbyist and back. And then, importantly, voting rights. And bringing back some of the major provisions that, frankly, were removed when the Voting Rights Act was repealed. So those are the big blocks of it. For me, there is one amendment that I personally took up as a passion that was part of H.R. 1. I was very, very proud of it. And it is the amendment based on my national security background that says foreign entities should not be able to buy ads on TV or social media in our election. And I must tell you, in researching and working on the amendment, we went through the ads that were targeted at Michigan, the social media ads in particular, that were bought by, in particular, Russian entities. And they are divisive, and they are meant to pit us against each other. They are meant to turn Americans against each other, so we're focused on fighting one another and not focused on what the Russians are doing, right? It is a playbook that they have used all across Eastern Europe. They have brought the playbook to the United States and has no role in our democracy, zero. So we passed this amendment, and I think the really exciting thing, or one of the exciting things about the freshman class is that we have a huge number of candidates like myself who have said we're not taking corporate PAC dollars, that we believe in restoring integrity to government. It created momentum to get this thing passed, and I could not be more proud to hold an event to talk about it. I'm going to hand it over to Tiffany, and then we're going to get to your questions. Thank you, as always, for being engaged citizens. If you're here, you're part of a very small fraction of people who actually come out, learn, ask questions. Even if I don't agree with you, you're out here and you're pushing on me, and that is the right thing to do. That means you are an engaged, civically minded citizen. Thank you for that. So let me hand it over to Tiffany for some remarks, and then we'll go down the line.
First, let's hear it for Congresswoman Slotkin. Can you hear me okay? All right, good.
You might want to stand.
I know. Stand up,
stand,
okay.
yeah.
I'm short. The standing doesn't do much more for me than the sitting. But stand on the chair. And then we'll get into acrobatics, and it just all goes downhill from there. So I am Tiffany Muller. I am the president of In Citizens United, and I am so honored to be here with all of you tonight. The last time that I was in Michigan was about 8 months ago when I joined then candidate Elisa Slotkin to roll out a reform agenda where she got to tell the voters of this district what she was going to do to help restore faith and integrity to the system and to our democracy. And I am so privileged to now be here to celebrate the passage of those promises coming to fruition. And so I just want to give one more round of applause to Congresswoman Slotkin. You know, at In Citizens United, we are harnessing the power of our 4 million members to really pass campaign finance reform legislation and to undo the damage caused by big money in our politics. Now, Congresswoman Slotkin is part of a freshman class that is the largest we've seen since Watergate. And I don't think that's a coincidence. You know, at that point in our history, in 1974, the country was facing really big problems, right? You had a class who knew that they needed to address everything from clean air to clean water to consumer protections. But before they could do any of that, they first had to address the lack of faith and trust that voters had in the system because it had been torn down by scandals, by money, by break-ins, right? And this class, and Congresswoman Slotkin, understand that we're in a similar time period. That, as a matter of fact, right now, only about 7% of all Americans believe that our government is working for them. 93% think it's working for just a few big interests. I actually want to meet the 7%, because I want to know, like, what they're taking and what we might be able to take from them. Laughs, there we go. So right now we're facing rising healthcare costs, prescription drug prices that keep going up and up, an opioid epidemic, needing to make an economy that works for everyone. But before we can do that, we have to make a democracy that works for everyone and that is responsive to not just big interests, but to the people. And that's